and welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis, which is presented to you by LawSeco. So today we have two articles for our discussion. The first article is Apt Judicial Reminder in Era of Over-Criminalization. This article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper and talks about the vague and ambiguous definitions or not even having a definition of terror and how this has actually become a problem of over-criminalization in the country. So what over-criminalization is and what problems exist in this direction have been discussed in this article. Also, this article has been written by Faizan Mustafa, who is the Vice Chancellor of Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad. And let me tell you that he is one of the finest writers when it comes to the legal writing. So definitely we should give this article a read and analysis. The second article is again from the Hindu newspaper, which is titled as Mendy's anti-torture vision is still distant for India. Now, this talks about a very nice principle that has recently come up into the forefront, that is the Mendy's principle, which talks about anti-torture and how investigation can become more friendly and more effective and avoid having or giving any kind of torture to the people. So this newspaper analysis is brought to you by me, being presented by me. My name is Sheba Khan. I am a BA LLB law graduate and had completed my law degree from Uttaranchal University in the year 2019. I have been the batch gold medalist and I've been also the national debater and a public speaker throughout my educational career. Here at LawSeco, I am working as the current affairs expert and manager for free content and outreach. If you wish to connect with me, you can find me out at Twitter as well as LinkedIn handles. The links to both are given in the description box. So this is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Bunny grassland is located in, your options are Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, or none of the above. If you know the answer, you can put it down in the comment section below. This is the descriptive question of the day. Has torture been defined under IPC? What are the legal provisions related to it? So if you wish to download the PDF of these slides, you can join our Telegram channel. The link to this channel is available in the description box below. And also you can simply scan this QR code on your screens to be a participant in the group. Also, do not forget to follow us on our Judiciary, CLAT, as well as UGC Net Insta channels for more such updates if you're preparing for these exams. So let's start a discussion for the first article of the day, which talks about era of over-criminalization. So here, Delhi High Court judgment has come up on defining terrorism. Basically, there has been the debate of misusing of criminal justice system. Let's understand that from the time period of 2015 to 19, that is within these 4 or 5 years, 7,840 persons, like for example, approximately 8,000 people were arrested under the UAPA, that is the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, but only 155 of them were convicted by the trial courts. So can you see that the proportion of people being arrested under the UAP and they being actually convicted by the trial is just not in in proportion, and it is very huge when it comes to the arrest, but very minuscule when it comes to the conviction, which in a way shows that the government or the police officials, in a way, they just try to arrest or suppress the people using the provisions of UAPA, and only after the investigation, a very little amount of people or very little or a small number of people are actually convicted. So till the time period of 1994, 67,000 people were detained, but only 725 were convicted in spite of confessions made to police officer being made admissible. So here it was, at that particular time, it was done that even the confessions given to the police were made admissible, which in current situation, if you remember, according to the Indian Evidence Act and also according to the CRPC, the police confessions, as in the confessions made to the police, are not admissible evidence in the court. But still, till 1994, 67,000 people were arrested on these grounds, but only 725 were convicted. So you can just simply understand what is the proportion, that how is it out of proportion. So the Supreme Court in the case of Kartar Singh in the year 1994 held that the prosecution had unjustifiably invoked TADA, That was the Simple Act of Terrorism Activities Act, with an oblique motive of depriving the accused person from getting bail. So as we know that the provisions under TADA these were non-bailable, and that is why it was held that knowingly the prosecution had used the provisions of TADA so that the person accused could not get bail. And similarly, the provisions of UAPA are also being misused in the current situation. So, if we understand that what are the most misused pieces of law in the country, so it definitely comes to our mind that there are two things. First is the UAPA, that is the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and the second one is sedition under Section 124A, which we have obviously discussed many times in our previous sessions as well. So neither TADA nor UAPA defines terror or terrorism. Now, this is one very ambiguous thing that we should consider here, that both of these things, be it the TADA or the UAPA, directly TADA and indirectly UAPA, they deal with terror or terrorism or terrorist activities. But surprisingly, none of them defines as to what do we mean by terror or terrorism. And this actually gives the power to the state or the police officials to misuse the entire given provisions in order to interpret the law just the way they want to. And thus they have made the entire system so exhaustive that every now and then and every other activity they include under the definition of terrorism or terrorist activity or terror, and thus they inflict or bring into use the provisions of UAPA and TADA. So, Section 15 of the UAPA merely defines terrorist act in wide and vague words like an act to threaten unity, integrity, etc. Now, obviously, what act are we talking about here has not been defined, and thus this leaves the entire definition way too ambiguous. And then the Supreme Court, in the case of Yaqub Abdul Razak in the year 2013, held that terrorist acts can range from threats to actual assassinations, car bombs, kidnappings, explosions, etc. And that is why this act of terrorism is a very wide ranged act, and thus we should have a clear definition of this in order to avoid any kind of misuse of the law. Now let's talk about the other judgments that have been taken in this direction. So the Supreme Court in Hitendra Vishnu Thakur in 1994 said that what distinguishes terrorism from other forms of violence is the deliberate and systematic use of coercive intimidation. Now, coercive intimidation is when we try to intimidate, when we try to, you know, we try to push a person through something in a very coercive manner, so that this kind of intimidation, when you try to make a person scared, and so that he gets scared to a level that he or she does whatever we want that person to do. Then the Supreme Court in the case of Ram Manohar Lohia in 1996 held that law and order represents the largest circle within which is the next circle representing public order, and smallest circle represents security of state. So that is why all these things have to fall in concentric circles, and that is why we need to still, considering them as one circle, still we need to demarcate and delimit them in order to avoid any kind of misuse in the coming times. Then the Supreme Court in the case of PUCL in 2003 included raising of constitutional principles, tearing apart of secular fabric, and promotion of prejudice and bigotry under the meaning of terrorism. So this clearly shows as to how wide can the understanding and the meaning of terrorism be. So creation of a truly just, egalitarian, and non-oppressive society would be more than effective in combating terrorism. And that is why, obviously, when we talk about it, we say that anything but egalitarian. We need to have an egalitarian, a, a society which is based on unity, which is based on equilibrium and equality. Such is the society that would ultimately help us to bring down the levels of terrorism. On this note, let's see that what is the second article of the day, which is the anti-torture and the Mendes principle. So as per the writers, the Indian law remains ambivalent and fails to fully prevent torture and coercion from creeping in. Now, this is a very, a harsh reality, but something that is very much on the forefront. Just remember any movie, Hindi, Bollywood, or even Tollywood movie, whenever the police arrests someone and tries to investigate, third degree torture is something that is shown so easily, right? So this is something which has given us so much, given taken so much space into our heads, that coercion and torture is the simplest way to take out the truth. But do you really think that this is actually a human behavior, to treat a person? Because see, many a times people, they accuse a person. It is not still been proved that this accused is also the one to be convicted and that this person actually committed that offense. But meanwhile, he or she is in the custody of the police. They're treated so badly and they are tortured so badly, they're coerced so badly that we actually violate all the basic human rights. And that is why it is important that we take the investigation on a very, on a better scale, and we try to investigate with proper investigative procedures. See, even if we use coercion and torture for a confession of a person, many a times, so why do we have this thing that the confessions given to the police officers or given to the police is not considered to be an admissible piece of evidence in the court? Because it has to be taken into account that there might have been a good and fair chance that the person accused confessed to the police just to save himself from any other kind of torture or beating up, or being tortured in any other physical or mental aspect. And that is why the court considers this and says that the confessions, if are given to the police, shall not be considered to be conclusive piece of evidence, because they might have been given under the situation of pressure and coercion as well. And that is why we understand that this is a well established fact and truth, that the police officials, they take the path of torture and coercion to investigate and to take out the confessions from people. So on the contrary side, we have the Mendes principle. So let's know that what is actually the Mendes principle. So it was launched in June 2020 as the principles of effective interviewing for investigations and info gathering. And that is why this actually helps better interviewing, better investigation, and a more effective gathering of the information that is actually required for the, reaching out till the conclusion of the case. So it is to provide a cohesive blueprint of practical measure to replace torture and coercive interrogation with repo-based interviews, reinforced through legal and procedural safeguards at every step. So basically, there will be legal and procedural safeguards to make sure that torture does not find its way and on any step of the investigation whatsoever. And it applies to all the authorities who have the power to detain and question the people. So be it the CBI, be it the police, enforcement directorate, etc., including the police, military, and the intelligence. So it is grounded in the scientific empirical studies like psychology, criminal psychology, criminology, sociology, and even the neuroscience, establishing that coercive investigation or interrogation is counterproductive. See, if we try to understand that not all people are easy to break at the hands of torture, there are a lot of criminals who are so conditioned already that no matter how badly you beat them up, no matter what kind of torture you give to them, they will not give you the right information that you are actually looking for. And in this case, the psychology comes into place, the criminology, the sociology, the neuroscience of that particular person comes into place. A very very good example of you guys, this guys, I can give you. If at all you have watched the web series Special Ops, in that web series, if you remember, KK Menon, who is the, the head, or the, the entire head of the intelligence over there, he goes and he gets a chance to interview Kasab. So they have shown a person, who is playing the role of Kasab. So if you have seen, now how much does it, it actually happened or not, this is definitely, it could be a fictional thing, but still, if you understand that when he was trying to fetch out information from that character, I mean, as in, Kasab at that point of time, he talked very politely to him in the very beginning. This, in a way, changed the psychology, or he, in a way, he played with the psychology of the criminal, and he got to get a lot of information which the predecessors who used to, torture, who used to abuse, beat him up, they could not get that information, because he, being Kasab, was already conditioned to a lot of torture. So definitely he was not giving in that easy. But when he was treated with, with love and, psychologically and smartly, he gave a lot of information to KK Menon, or the character that he was playing. So this is something exactly what they are talking about over here, that if we try to use different aspects of science, scientific temperament, and also, logic and legal interpretation, So these can play a better role, and we can avoid the interrogation to turn counterproductive rather being very productive. So, if we talk about the prevalence in India, so in spite of the prohibition of and safeguards against the third degree torture methods, they are normalized in the police practice, as I just mentioned. So, the police officers believe that certain degree of fear and pressure is necessary to compel a suspect to speak the truth. It was according to 2019 survey, and as I said, it is always and always shown in the Hindi movies as well. And thus constraints, inadequate resource, political pressure, and overburdened legal system, the officers conjure the image of a vigilante cop compelled to take matters into their own hands, and that is why they choose to get more and more torturous in this regard. So, if we talk about the Indian law in particular, Section 27 of the Indian Evidence says it permits the admissibility of statements before the police to the extent that they relate to recovery of the material objects. But still, please remember that the confessions are still not admissible, but only those statements and confessions are admissible that are actually important for recovery of any material objects for the investigation. So this was all for the day. We hope it was a good session for you all. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to our channels for such more updates to come. Thank you so much.